Every year at Congregation, UBC has the honor of bestowing honorary degrees upon individuals who, in the opinion of the university community, have fit the criteria of excellence and eminence in their chosen field. Dominic Stephen Barton is one of those individuals, and I invite him now to step forward and receive his honorary degree. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, many Canadians believe, somewhat modestly, that there needs to be more of Canada in the world. We see ourselves as decent, hardworking, ethical, and brave. In the case of Dominic Barton, we're not far off the mark. Mr. Barton is the Global Managing Director of Mckinsey & Company, one of the world's preeminent management consulting firms. During its 85-year history, the company has earned the trust of business and government leaders throughout the world. McKinsey now operates in 50 countries. Mr. Barton has urged private and public sectors to strategize for the greater good. He advises them to work together to solve looming challenges such as climate change, water governance, and national debt. Mr. Barton graduated from UBC in 1984 and was selected as a Rhodes Scholar before beginning his 25-plus-year career at McKinsey. We are grateful. Over the years, he has remained involved in UBC, for example, speaking to the Sauder School Business Forums. Mr. Barton has worked in Asia, leading McKinsey's Korea office and overseeing the entire Asia region. As a result, he has a unique understanding of how China and Korea will shape the world's economic and political agendas. A prolific author, Mr. Barton is known for extensive writings on global commerce, development, and reform. His most recent book is entitled China Vignettes, A Look Inside China. Mr. Barton is an active participant in international forums, including Davos, the Asia Business Council, and the Aspen Strategy Group. He is a trustee of the Brookings Institute, one of Washington's oldest think tanks. He is also chairman of the International Advisory Committee to the Provost of South Korea on National Future and Vision. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, for his contributions to global cooperation and corporate governance, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, on Dominic Stephen Barton.
By authority of the Senate of this university, I confer upon you, Dominic Stephen Barton, the title and degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Congratulations. Stand there.
It gives me great pleasure to now ask Dr. Barton to say a few words.
Well, first thing let me say is congratulations to all of you on the graduation, because that's really why we're all here. I also want to thank President Toop and also Dean Zika for all of the support and help that they've provided to me over the years. And again, it's a great honor to be here. I've got 5 minutes, and it's very difficult for a consultant to keep to within 5 minutes, so I'm going to try my best. But the other thing I have to tell you as I get started is it reminds me of the comedian which you probably haven't heard of before named Guido Sarducci, who actually designed what he called the 5-minute university, because his view is after 30 years, all you remember is 5 minutes. So we'll just design the course so you get 5 minutes. So I'll be doing a bit of that here. What I actually wanted to talk to you about very briefly was leadership. And not as a leader, but more as a student of leadership, because in my role I get the chance to meet many leaders from across the world, CEOs and government leaders and so forth. And what I wanted to just assert to you and ask of you is that when we think about the next 20 to 30 years in the world, what's going in front of us, in front of you as you lead, I believe will be one of the most historic times in human history, at least over a 200-year period. And that's, of course, easy for me to say because none of us will be around in 200 years to know whether what I said was right or not. But I actually believe it. And I believe that because we have, even while Europe is having all of its problems and issues, a huge set of forces that are underway in the world that we're going to have to deal with. We've got what I call the re-rise of Asia and Africa. We're going to have 1 billion new middle-class consumers in the next 10 years. To put that in perspective, in the Industrial Revolution, we're talking about 50 million people over about a 75-year period. We're talking about 900 to 1 billion in a 10-year period. We've just not seen that type of change before. Technology, which is changing at 3 times faster than management. You know, Facebook would be the 3rd largest nation on the planet if you put everyone together. 5 billion people with phones. We're going to see changes like we can't imagine. You're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have a demographic shift like we've never seen before. We're going to go from basically having 10 working people for every retiree, which is what we had in 2001, to having 3 working people for every retiree in the world in 2051. And you think about what that means for healthcare, and actually you think about what that means for education. I'd be surprised if we aren't going to see people coming back to UBC when they're my age for some more retraining for the next 30 years of our work career and how we move. So I think we're going to have some very big assumptions that we're going to have to challenge and look at. And then we have resource challenges. We're going to need to create food that we've done over a 10,000-year period in a 20-year period in terms of what we're doing on the Earth, in terms of population growth and so forth. So very significant challenges that are out there, and they're going to be challenges that you need to deal with. I'm an optimist, but I think what it's going to require is new ways of leadership, and that's what I just wanted to focus a couple of things on. When you think about being a leader, we always seem to talk about what a leader does, how they design a strategy or align people or organize their places. I think that what's going to be most important when we think ahead and as you lead going ahead is not what leaders do, but who leaders are. It's going to matter much more about one's character, because there are so many issues out there that there's no way you can possibly know ahead of time how to deal with them, and it comes down to character. And I don't believe character is something that you are born with. I think to some extent there's that. It's a muscle, and it can be developed. And the areas of character that I think are most important are the following. The first is actually around having a sense of purpose. Each of you, I hope, has big dreams about what you want to do. And I think most people will tell you, and I remember listening to people yabbering away at me when I was graduating, we tend to be too short-term in our thinking. I was more worried about whether I would have a job and what that would be like and how I would be able to move it. I think it's very important to think about your dream and your purpose and where you're going. And I think leaders who have a strong sense of purpose are going to get a lot more done. And so it's important to work on that dream. Keep working on it. It's a muscle, and you need to develop it. The second part I would just say is around resilience. I think it's going to be very important in this world which is 24/7. There's no difference between public life and private life if you want to be a leader. You're going to have to be ready for lots of challenges and issues. And resilience is the ability, when you do have a setback, to just get back up on your feet and move forward. And some research that I found most interesting in the last couple of years is looking at, this is mainly businesses, but looking at cohorts of people who join an organization and then what happens to them over time. And the more successful people in those cohorts versus the less successful people in those cohorts, and this is global, doesn't matter if you're in China, Canada, the UK. The difference is the more successful people actually have more bad luck than the less successful people. It's kind of counterintuitive, but the more successful people have more bad luck. That sounds strange. It doesn't to me, because I think part of being a leader is you're taking risk and you're trying things. And if you're not pushing it, you're not going to be ready to be able to drive things forward. So think about that when you think about resilience, taking risk, get back up off your feet. A lot of people, I could speak for an hour about all the mistakes that I make and will be making. The important thing is to keep driving forward. But the last thing I would just want to share with you is something that I also learned in China, and it was a saying one of my clients told me. I don't know if it's an old Confucius saying or a Buddhist saying or what, it doesn't matter to me. It means something to me. And the basic saying was, the more you give without expecting to get back, the more you will get. But don't ever forget that middle part, which is don't give to get. Give without expecting to get, and it'll work out. And I think that's a very good mantra as we go through things. Anyhow, I think you're going to be leading in literally one of the most exciting times in history. I hope you will lead well, because I'm going to be counting on it as I sit on my rocking chair as you navigate us through this storm. And I want to wish you all of the very best in your futures as leaders. Thank you very much.